Welcome to the long dead second channel where I will be playing Age of Empires with my good friend Benji from a channel you should check out, the Tale Foundry. Benji, why don't you tell them a little bit about what you do?
Hey everybody. Mostly I pretend to be a robot, which is a lot of fun. But the channel is mostly about writing and storytelling. Most of what we do is we find fiction that we really love, try to figure out why we love it so much, and then figure out if and how we can put that into our own work. So that's mostly the premise of the show. Yeah, we're working on not a lot of new content right now that I'm super stoked about.
Yeah. Yeah, so we're all in the writing kind of YouTube sphere, and that's how sort of we connected originally. But what we're doing today is we're just going to talk about the process of writing a book while we play Age of Empires. Benji, is this the first or second time that you've played Age of Empires? This is
Uh, Technically, it's the third because we
oh,
tried to play
technically
a
it's
second
third.
time and my computer overheated and exploded.
That's right.
But
Yeah.
provided that doesn't happen this time, this will be the second like actual time I've played the game all the way through an actual game.
Yes, so that is why we are playing on Black Forest with moderates and all visible so that I can see what he's doing and potentially help him. I'm going to be playing as the Japanese, he's going to be playing as the Britons, and we don't know who we'll be playing, but let's start the game.
I like to think my avatar is representative of my skill level in the game somehow.
A fish.
Yeah.
So we're versing the Mongols and the Saracens, which are both cavalry civilizations, and a good counter to cavalry is pikemen, halberdiers. Um, but yeah, the Saracens are pretty good. All right.
Pike is appropriate because it reminds me a lot of my avatar. Okay. So we're off to a good start already because I remembered how to click on things and interact with them.
Oh, that's good. That's good. You'll by the way, if you've got your little scout, you'll know that there are sheep around. You should get your sheep into your town center, and you should send your villagers to kill and eat them. Like
Yeah,
good.
I'm in the process of murdering a little creature right now. My scout is trying to run through a tree. Uh, okay, so Tim, is this your first novel?
Right. Yeah. So, my goodness, this just reminds me of how bad a multitasker I am. Uh, this is this my first novel? Yeah. So at the moment, I am writing a book called "I'm Not Telling You," and I think I've told you, Benji. So don't say
I know.
anything. Yeah, you know. But it is a fiction book, and I am about I don't know, probably 45,000 words into the second draft, which I am really happy with because I didn't think I'd get there this quickly, but I have. Um, and I'm aiming to have the second draft completed by the end of the year. Well, probably within the next few months, and then from there I'll look at editing and potentially a third draft. But I'm gonna see where I go from there.
That's 45,000 words is a good number, especially considering I think the longest thing I have ever written and finished was about 22,000 words. So you're doing just fine.
22,000 words. So you did a novella.
Yeah, that was the one you actually listened to a couple days ago, I think.
Wait, that was 22,000 words.
I believe it was about, and actually no, it was almost 20,000. That's right.
Wow. Okay, that did not feel it. Like, I mean, so I listened to the other day. It was called Automata on Q, which is just a fantastic title, by the way.
Oh, it wasn't the first title I came up with. I went through a couple real stinkers to get there.
Do you mind sharing what your other titles were?
If I can even remember, it's like trauma, like blocked out of my mind. There was one commenter when I was thinking about titles and posting them for votes on the community tab on YouTube, who was like, I'm just so disappointed in you. These are so pretentious, blah blah blah. Typical YouTube comment, like way too
So
angry
disappointed in you. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
way too angry about things. That I know what you mean.
Yeah, but it, I don't know, I'm fortunate, I feel like, to have that kind of input period, even if it is too angry, because it helped me to reevaluate my priorities and what I was doing. And so I was gonna go with something like, what was it, like a carousel of broken dreams or something like that. It was
Carousel of Broken Dreams. I'm just hearing Green Day in that.
Yeah, exactly. It wasn't that, but it was something like that. It was one of those things where, like, I'm trying to put a metaphor into the title, but in isolation within the title, and it's like you can feel the pretense dripping off it. So
Yeah,
yeah,
I get what you mean. Like I think that's one of the really hard things when you're writing, if you're trying to write with depth, is trying to figure out, am I writing with depth or am I just being pretentious?
that really is super difficult.
Where the hell is my
Especially
second
because,
board?
like, I don't know. I just started. I meant to start making farms, but instead I started researching looms. So
no, loom is good to research. Loom's good to research. You're doing well. No, I know what you mean. That is really hard. To know.
Sorry, I'm a little distracted right now because I'm trying to remember where in the menu to go to build a farm so that my people can have food. I continually have a problem with this. I don't know why.
You need to click on a villager, and then it's in the bottom left, and it's the little hammer with the pocket of money, as opposed to the hammer and the sword. And then you'll see the farm is the second one down on the left. Also, you've got a couple of idle villagers standing around. You never want idle villagers.
That's true. I need to get these two people producing textiles for me stat.
You do. Okay. That's absolutely true. And you probably want to focus more on wood and food at the start of the game, and then transition to gold, and then stone later on. Also, they are currently no, they're not stealing your sheep anymore. They were going to, but
let's get these sheep back home. So, do you have any, like, novels that you started to try to write and then abandoned a part of the way through, or is this your first genuine effort and you're following all the way through with it?
I feel like you're half asking that question because you know the answer and it's painful and horrible. But no, this is not my first novel that I have completed, theoretically, and it's also not even the first novel that I've tried to get published, technically. But
I didn't actually know that.
I've
not heard that story.
It's nothing serious at all. It was a book that I tried to get published, and I ended up getting an offer from a somewhat less than reputable press when I was like 12, so it doesn't count. I'm sorry.
Well, did you at least? I mean, you might have dodged a bullet there then.
Yeah, definitely dodged a bullet. Okay, let's get some walls up. Yeah, so I in terms of books that I have finished, as in, like, you would count as a completed manuscript, to a first draft stage. So we're talking just like a first complete draft that, even if it's terrible, is there. Well, I can tell you that I have done. Ooh, that is a nice defensive position. So you see this hill here?
In a sec, I will. Oh yeah, that little tiny thing. Yeah, I was looking for like a butte, but yeah, no, I see.
Yeah, that hill. That hill is beautiful because archers do extra damage when they are going facing downhill. And
Okay.
yeah, it's which means that if you can build towers and castles on there, now I know you haven't got to the castle age yet, but as in ever.
My friend, I have not gotten to the feudal age yet.
That's okay. That's okay. You're allowed to not be at the feudal age.
It's okay. This is a second channel stream.
Yeah, exactly. I am gonna set up some walls for you because otherwise you're probably gonna die.
I appreciate that. Set them up on this little mosquito bump of a hill over here.
I suppose, yeah, you're not used to, like, yeah, it is basically a little hill. That is really unfortunate, though, that you have such an open area into your base, where I have a really narrow... Like, look at this corridor here. Tiny little corridor.
Oh, yeah, how fabulous for you. That is super narrow. Meanwhile, mine is like an octopus with pathways, like, spreading out into all the various corners of the world.
Yes. So, what I'm actually going to try and do is channel them towards my base rather than yours.
How do I... Okay, I can harvest boars and goats, right?
You can harvest them, yep. They will be... They're excellent sources of food.
Yeah, my experience novel writing so far has just been write about 70 pages and then abandon it. Oh, this boar is going to kill my villager.
Oh, yeah, no, you need lots of villagers to attack them at once.
There's just a bow lying on the ground now.
Okay, you've got 3 villagers right next to your base. No, don't send another one. Just retreat. Just send. He's gonna die.
Battle.
Send them.
This is my battle, Tim.
Please, let them. Shit. Please let your villagers attack them together.
My civilization is going to be ended by a boar.
This is the fall of Western civilization.
This is why it never started. They all came single file to attack one boar.
Okay, I'm setting you up a wall.
I appreciate that. Set it up between me and this other boar.
What? You want me to set up a wall between you and the other boar?
Okay. Clearly, it's very dangerous for my society.
All right, you know that yellow button up at the top next to where it says Feudal Age. Oh, sorry, next to where it says Dark Age.
Yes.
Click that.
Okay.
Now take that villager and set them to doing something. It doesn't matter what. Just look at whatever resource you need and do that.
I'm super deep into getting to the feudal age right now. I'm about 70 food away from it, and I'm thrilled to join the rest of the world. Are you in the castle age yet?
I am heading up to the castle age in a little bit.
Okay, we'll just wait. I'll eclipse you once I get the technology to kill boars efficiently. But yeah, my experience with novel writing has pretty much so far just been write about 70 pages, find something else I'm interested in, and then abandon it, or realize at the 70-page mark there's so much I dislike about my draft that this is not the time that the book is going to come out. And that's happened to me about 4 times at this point, which was one of the reasons I went to short story writing, because I just felt like I didn't have the skill. If I was going to fail writing my first book, 4 times in succession, maybe I need to acquire some skills first.
Oh crap, I'm already under attack. Now that's fair. I get what you mean. I get what you mean. Like, a lot of people, I do know, like, try to go straight into writing a massive novel, and it's just a bad idea.
Yeah, I'm conflicted about it, because, like, I think you can learn most of what you need to from writing a novel, but there's something about finishing a piece, like being able to look at a whole thing in a complete work, and evaluate how it came out and what you did to get there, etc. That just feels different from working on the same thing for a very long period of time. So unless you're like Brandon Sanderson, I just feel like short stories are such a good gateway into novel writing, into longer form fiction.
I totally agree, though I do admit I find it immensely difficult to write short stories. Like, they are
Really?
not. Yeah, I find them a lot harder. You know, you've got to be so much more careful with what you're writing.
That's true. You have to write pretty lean, which is it's not like a fundamental skill that just like everyone has out of the gate. With a novel, you can meander and have whatever kind of a character exchanges you want. You can have asides. With a short story, if you try to do that stuff, you start pulling your hair out because you're 30 pages into your short story and you haven't finished the first act, and you're like, should this even have 3 acts? And then you got to restart, and it's pretty demoralizing, I would say. I've had that experience a few times. Actually, the novella I wrote was supposed to be a short story. It was supposed to be in the ballpark of 7,000 words. But after listening to that, I'm sure you can understand why it ended up a novella.
Yeah, yeah. No, I get what you mean. That was a really good short story, though. Like, how long did that take you to write? And by the way, you should all listen to it. I do understand it is, you know, 2 hours long, but it is very worth it.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I'm retroactively pretty proud of that thing. But while I was writing it, I think I told you this. I was in a pretty deep funk writing that thing because, I had a YouTube channel to run, and I wasn't running it. I had basically put everything on hold to write this thing because it was going to be my next video. And then like a month passed, and 2 months passed, and 3 months passed, and it was such a complex work. The sunk cost fallacy, I just kind of threw it out the window and wasn't like, I can come back to this later. What I need to do is work on my life right now. I basically said goodbye to all my work for half a year and to make that thing. And then I posted it on YouTube and it got like 9,000 views or something. But I learned a lot in the process. I can look back at it retroactively, and it's a valuable project to me. Am I going to do it again? Absolutely not. In fact, that process led me to think about how I can economize a little bit and figure out, like, ahead of time, is this idea too big for a short story?
Yeah, no, that's fair. That I totally get what you mean. I think, I don't know. I think I've always read a lot more long stories. So, in a sense, like it's a kind of like you write what you're used to, you know?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that was my feeling too, and I think that's pretty natural when you're reading a lot of novels and epic fantasy and stuff, to want to write that. It's the thing you're familiar with. It's the thing you're going to aspire to because it's familiar to you, and then you set out to write it, and it's just this mountain in front of you, and you have no tools to scale it. So you're like figuring out, as you go, like how to find handholds, how to not fall to your death.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, like it took me 4 years to get to the point where I could write the second draft of my first book, of this book that I'm currently on.
I've got a question for you, Tim. Why can't I build a farm?
Do you have 60 wood?
Yes, I have almost 1,000 wood.
Well, you do not have a mill.
Oh, you have to build that first.
Yeah,
Oh,
sometimes buildings will have. Okay, so I would suggest building your mill in a nice open space like this, because that's where you can. That's where you can
build the most fields around it.
You can build the most fields around it. Exactly.
Fabulous. Okay, I thought the mill was kind of like all the various camps you build, where you build your farm and then you put your mill down to save travel time, pretty much. So I've been just sitting here like,
true.
I guess I'll harvest that ram.
No, they've got to bring it back as well.
Okay. All right. Well, maybe now I can actually advance a little bit as a civilization.
That
But
would be that would be excellent. All right, I need to get a second town center up.
so, what experience do you have writing short stories in that case? It sounds like you've tried it out a few times.
I have very little in the grand scheme of things. I mean, compared to what I've tried to do with novel writing.
Mhm.
Um, I've written a few short stories. I even wrote a short story from the perspective of Eva Braun, who, if you didn't know, was Hitler's wife. Um,
Oh, that sounds difficult.
it was not a great short story, I'll tell you that.
Do you credit that more to the material being difficult or to your skill as a budding writer?
I would credit that primarily to it was me being a bad writer
That's
because
fair. That's
it wasn't very good.
yeah. I still feel that way, honestly, every time I write something. I don't know. I feel like there's never going to be a point where I write a short story, I'm just like, yeah. Like, I am great at short story writing and writing in general, and this is going to come out awesome. I feel like it's always going to kind of be like, I don't know, like, I'll be lucky if this works.
Yeah, I get what you mean. I get what you mean. I this book that I'm writing at the moment, um, second draft. I've been all of my books come from a very personal place, and I think this is the first one that I have like really been thinking about for this long. Um, Sometimes when you're
Wasn't
writing
it
a
from, like,
bit.
high school?
No, I wrote the first draft of this in 2016, and then
Mm.
after that, I was like, no, can't really do it. Can't really do a second draft. And okay, it's good, by the way. They're pressing on me. They're pressing over here, but they are coming around.
That's very good. They're attacking you first because now that I've built a mill, I can't seem to build the actual farm. I'm selecting my villagers, got the farm clicked, right clicking on a patch, and gosh darn it, nothing is happening.
Uh, you need to select a villager, and then you need to select. You don't need to right click. You need to left click.
Is that really what I've been doing wrong here? Ah, fabulous. Wonderful. Awesome. All
You're
right.
doing fantastically. I have a feeling we're gonna lose this game because I have been very distracted.
I can't imagine by what though.
No, not at all. Neither. It's a complete mystery.
There was a moment before we started recording where you were like, "Should we just play? Should we just play the game?" And I was like, "No, it'll be way better." So blame me for this. This is absolutely my fault.
I hereby blame you.
Yeah, I'm sure I'll hear about this on Twitter for the next year or so. In fact, I'm sure this will extrapolate out to whenever there is something to blame anyone for. It'll be, remember that time? Remember that time we sacrificed 2 civilizations so that we could talk about books?
I'm glad you understand the gravity of your situation now.
That doesn't mean I regret it by any means. Doesn't mean I'm penitent in the least. It just means I'm aware.
Okay, I should theoretically be able to... Jeez, I'm not getting the resources I need. Do you need any resources in particular?
I actually have plenty because I was accruing them while figuring out how to left click. So.
Oh, I've been really
Okay.
dumb. I've been specking into champions when I've got freaking Japanese samurai. I don't know why I did that.
I don't even know what that means. So I'm just gonna go with your judgment on this. And yeah, shame on you.
I'm about to get rushed by a bunch of cavalry, so let's get them over here.
Okay. I think I can make it into the castle age in like the next 5 minutes.
That's good.
I just need gold and food. And you know what? I'll make some villagers.
Yes. What's your population sitting at?
10 out of 10. It's less of a society and more of a clique, really.
You guys are just 10 out of 10? You're like 20 minutes into this game. I'm at 83 out of 120.
Rome wasn't built in 20 minutes, Tim.
No,
And
but Rome also had a population of at least 3 million.
Which didn't happen in a day. You know, I'm sure for the first 1,000 years or so, they had about 10 or 15 people.
You know what? You are right. Technically, you're right.
All right, I'm gaining on this now. Now I can have 15 villagers. So don't worry.
Well,
I'll be with all of you shortly.
No, they're at least pushing on me, which is good.
Yeah, fabulous. Maybe after they destroy you, by that point I'll be strong enough to survive them.
Hopefully, by the time they've destroyed me, they'll just be like, they'll be just be coming for you, and they won't even bother. They'll just move on past.
Maybe what we could do is like a switcheroo where like they destroy you and they're so eager to kill me that they don't even bother to sack your lands. So then I sneak out the back door, come around, I sack your lands, and then, you know, come up from behind them.
That's absolutely right.
Yeah.
You know what?
It sounds feasible to uproot a whole society that way in a matter of minutes. Okay, let's get some gold.
What's my... Make your towers stronger by making them shoot extra arrows. I mean, it's not really that great because I'm not speaking into towers. So they're going hard cavalry from what I can tell on both of them. They're also coming with a lot more siege weapons. Come on, let's get into...
Fabulous.
Let's get
Hey,
get
Tim,
into Imperial.
you want to know
What?
something really cool about my situation?
Yes.
I still have thatched roofs.
You do still have thatched roofs, yes. I am... Okay, you need to build more houses.
Yes, I agree with this. Let's grab this idle villager and have him build a house all on his own. Honestly, though, these are like societies of ubermenches because they build homes on their own, they build farms on their own.
I suppose you're technically correct. Okay, I really need you to build a market.
Okay, all right, I'll get to that. Can I build that during the feudal age?
No, yes. I'm not sure. Also,
Yes.
you're currently getting attacked by a single dude and a battering ram. Can you manage that?
Perhaps. I don't even know where that is, though.
It should be... Okay, I'm just sending dudes there. I'm sending dudes there.
Oh, there he is. There he is. I'll send my scout after him. Will my scout die taking this on? Oh no, they also
Yes.
have an archer. Oh yeah, that scout is gonna die. I regret to inform you, Tim, that although I may be able to fight a boar now, I still cannot fight other soldiers.
That's okay. You know, that's okay. You don't need to feel too bad about that. You just need to get the economy right.
Right. Okay. So I've just built a ton of villagers. I'll stick them on food, and
Oh,
everything
shoot.
will be fine.
If you need resources, do let me know, and I will do my best to give you some resources.
Oh yes, wood. Wood would allow me to make a market.
You don't have any wood.
Not much. I got 21 at the moment, and 4 people on it. I actually just discovered that little number on the bottom right of the resource is how many people you have gathering that resource. That's
Yeah.
useful.
That is absolutely what we have. So you need wood. I'm not sure if I can actually send you stuff until you. Oh no, I can. All right, here you go. Here's 500 wood.
Excellent. Okay, let's get these two idle villagers to do something useful. Where do you want this market?
I want your market. Here.
Okay.
Because what I'm going to do is I'm going to clear a path between the back of our two bases so that our markets can go, our things can go between one another.
Interesting. Okay, so right next to this pool of water.
Just down that area. Oh bloody hell!
There we go.
Wait, did they? No, not.
I think we're perhaps both pretty bad at multitasking. I think this is something we're discovering.
It is admittedly not my strong point. But I am going to run out of. I'm going to run out of gold if you
I
don't
have
get
230. Will that be useful?
You don't need to give me any gold.
Oh, okay. The two people I sent over here to build a market are being attacked by a leopard.
Yeah, they should be able to take the leopard out though. It should be okay.
Yeah. Why can they? Okay, they can't fight a boar, but they can fight a leopard.
Yeah, boars are like extremely lethal in this game for some reason.
Boars are overpowered. I wish I could make boars for units. Okay, let's...
Stop advancing, you idiots!
Okay. We're doing fine. Nothing to worry about yet.
Okay, for some reason, my people are just not getting enough gold. Are they going to try and convert my dudes? Yeah, that's not happening.
I forget that's something you can do in this game.
It is. I don't think I ever told you that, though.
I heard it when we were playing with Daniel. That time my computer exploded.
Oh, right. You're working on a book of short stories at the moment, right?
Oh yeah, technically I am, yes. Because, I write short stories for all the themed videos I do on Foundry. I do like these mini-series where we take these deep dives into extant bodies of work that we really like, and then I try to write a short story based on what I've learned from those. And it's not like I'm not trying to replicate something the author has done. I'm just trying to incorporate something, I think is transferable from their work. So I've got a bunch of those, and it's kind of cool because it's not an anthology that shows off my skill as a writer. It shows off how much I didn't know and how much I've learned by trying to take lessons from other writers. So I think when I make it, I'm going to try and kind of bill it as like, watch this person over the course of 20 some odd stories develop their crafts.
See, I just admire, your audacity to put your writing online. Like, I'm genuinely terrified of that because, people would obviously have a lot of opinions on what my writing's like, and that's not because, I don't think my writing's bad, but I also know that I've generally thought that my writing is better, who has been writing has not been that great, and when I look back on it after a time. But I suppose that's true of like every author. Yeah,
I mean, it's weird. It's interesting that you see it as like bravery or audacity on my part, because I kind of see it as like submission or I don't know what the term is for this, like giving up a little bit, where I'm just like, you know what, forget it. I'm not going to write something perfect. People are going to dislike it. It's going to happen. I would rather just share it and see what happens.
No, that's fair. I mean, I know that, obviously, once you've got it out there, it makes it a lot easier to sort of get over that hurdle.
Yeah, it's like having taken the dive, like ripping the band-aid off. Although I will say, I
Shoot.
wasn't gonna do it, but what happened?
You've got people in your base.
Oh, oh,
Damn it.
green guys, right? Okay.
Yeah. Okay, hang on.
I don't have
I'm
any
gonna,
soldiers yet.
Give me a second. I should be able to deal with them. All right. I want you to click on your town center and click the bell.
Okay. I literally just queued up like 9 militia.
That's good. Militia, they certainly are units.
There's something. They can probably take 2 crossbowmen, yeah? If I get 9 of them going.
Oh yeah, 9 crossbowmen would allow you to take a dude. You can just send your villagers into your town center.
Oh no.
Okay. I'm sending some dudes, and I'm putting up a castle who will be able to.
I am under siege by 2 men. Ah, this is worse than that time we had to deal with the boar.
The great trauma of your history, dealing with the boar.
There, I did that. I appreciate your help, though. That was very useful to have you there. I think we pretty much had it under control, but I appreciate the gesture.
I'm sending in my dudes to kill the enemy. By the way, so yellow should be hopefully wiped out in a little bit.
Oh, fabulous! Yeah, I have a long-standing feud with yellow.
Those 3 pikemen should hopefully be able to keep you safe.
I'm so traumatized by 2 people entering my village. I don't even know what to do anymore. Okay, here we go. I'm back at it.
Oh Yellow's resigned.
I'll see ya.
Yeah. This book though, like for me, people often ask me like, where do you start with a book? And this book definitely started for me with, like a character arc, the character arc of the main character, and like, I don't know how you work in particular, but for me, a lot of the time, the struggles that the characters are going through. In fact, I've heard your Automata on Q, so I know that. For you, a lot of the time, the characters in your story go through similar struggles to what you're going through with.
Yes, yeah, I think that's pretty common. Mostly just because it's empathy, right? It's very hard to know what an experience is like if you haven't gone through it. And I think the most poignant stuff you'll ever write is stuff that is happening to you currently, where you don't kind of have to grasp and like try to remember and recall or imagine what it's like. If it's something you're going through right now, you just put it to the page, just commit
That's
it.
True.
Basically.
That's true. There's that degree of I think there's definitely, you know, a degree of pretty much just translating your experiences to the page rather than trying to imagine someone else's experiences.
Yeah, although I will say it's like way, I don't know, it's like way sexier to do it the other way for some reason. It's exciting to try to envision something I've never been through, but the fundamental issue with that is that I haven't been through it. So the thing you've got to do is like comparative analysis, like what experience do I have that comes close to this, and then you have to do research, and both of those things require a lot of like time and mental energy and stuff. So they're on their own, they're just way more psychologically taxing. It's way more of a barrier to actually like starting to write the story. So having that empathetic place to start just makes the process not only a little more genuine, but just way easier.
Yeah, definitely. I get what you mean. I I know what you mean by like, oh, it's sexier to do it the other way, because you know we sort of worship these authors who have the ability to visualize anyone and anything, you know, and that's
Yeah,
totally
exactly.
fair. It's a real skill, but and in the sense like I've always described uh I've always described writing as kind of an exercise in empathy, because it is, I think. Um, and in a way, like the
Uh,
books that I write are still exercises in empathy.
yeah, I agree with that completely. It's interesting to think about, like, when you say exercise in empathy, I'd be curious to know how that translates practically to you. Like what thoughts are you having as you write? Like, are you like, I've got to go out and have this experience before I can write? Or are you like interviewing people? Like, what are you doing to uh, get that empathetic exercise, that training you need to write from those perspectives or write accurately?
Uh, I think for me, you know, a lot of the writing that I do is kind of an engagement with those hypotheticals. I think a lot through like, what would I do if this situation came up? How should I react? How could I react? And a lot of the time, the different reactions of various characters kind of reflect different sentiments that might have gone through my mind or struggles that I've had with that particular kind of scenario. Um, you're in the castle age.
I did it!
You did it.
I've got shingles on my roofs!
You do have shingles on your roofs. Congratulations.
No more thatching here. Trogdor, come back another day.
Uh,
Um, but yeah, I think you're totally right. I think the least truthful, the most kind of opaque, ugliest characters I've ever written are characters that I kind of saw from a distance. I was like, okay, I'm trying to write a sadist. Actually, the worst character I've ever written was a sadist.
when
And
you
at
say
some point in the
worst, do you mean
story,
worst quality, or do you mean like worst as in the most horrible?
both pretty much, because she was pretty two-dimensional. And what I was trying to do with that story, I think it was a good idea for the story, but I was so focused on character. I was so like, let's make this character driven. I kind of confused writing empathetically with writing interestingly, and I was like, let's just give this character a real quirky personality, real quirky motives. And at some point in the story, it devolves into torture porn, and it's like there's this huge like 30-minute setup while you're listening, and eventually you just get to the scene where somebody's like being mercilessly butchered, and it's like, where did this come from and why? And I know as an author what I was trying to do, but other people listening to it have to just be like, what the heck is this?
Yeah, I'm not sure I 100% follow what you mean there. Are you saying like oftentimes characters that you write, you know, when you do them badly, it just becomes this sort of heinous. You're throwing so much intensity at them that they sort of lose a reality.
Well, they become caricatures,
They
and
become caricatures, right?
yeah, and they create falseness within the story by creating false motivations. So like, I had this character that I thought would be really cool as a sadist, for various reasons within the world. Very emotionally damaged, and taking out her lack of control on other people. And I was so wrapped up in that idea, I didn't think about, like, empathetically, how would I respond in these situations? What would I do? I'm not a sadist, but I've been angry. I felt those feelings. I know what's galvanized me to like want to punch a wall or something like that. Those very like Lord of the Flies feelings that come from deep within your subconscious. And I
Those
just didn't
Lord
think
of the
about that at
Flies
all.
feelings.
Yeah,
I like
you know
that
what I mean.
description. I was actually writing a piece of description for a building the other day, and I was trying to decide between two different pieces of description. Either describing it as straight out of Ingsok's design handbook. I don't know if you know what Ingsoc is. Um,
English socialism?
uh, I believe it does actually start for that, but it's from the dystopian novel, um, and It's from 1984.
1984. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I
Yeah.
thought that sounded familiar. It's been a little while since I listened to, or yeah, listened to it on Audible. But yeah.
I was trying to figure out, should I go for Ingsock's Straight Edge Ingsock's Handbook or Stalinist? How would you imagine Stalinist architecture? Like if I say that.
I'm a historical neophyte. I know next to nothing. So the things I do learn, I tend to learn for the purposes of fiction. And the place I got to was the end of the like Lenin's era of Russian history. So just before Stalin starts exerting a meaningful influence. So I don't actually know. I can't actually speak too well to that. But I'm curious what your thoughts for starting that would be.
Well, I kind of imagined the USSR was like known for basically having not carbon copy, but they'd have like a set of designs for their architecture, following kind of this philosophy of everyone having the same equal kind of housing and whatever. And part of it was state housing giving everyone the opportunity to have quality housing, but the result of that is that they had these uniform designs for all of the different places, all the different like apartment complexes that they built, and so you've got these basically giant cold concrete, structures that are just monolithic, and I always loved that kind of imagery as very, very kind of terrifying, and
it's definitely very imposing. It kind of sucks the life and variety and disparity out of things.
Yeah. So that's what I was going for.
It makes me think of Kafka-esque stuff, where like the just the sheer oppression of architecture and the world you live in. It's not even other people doing things to you. It's just being part of a very rigid system, and how difficult that is for a creative human's mind, or just a human's mind, probably.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean. That's sort of what I'm going for. I was trying to figure out which one of those two phrases kind of captured that feeling better.
I'm trying to remember. I'm multitasking here, so I'm trying to remember what are you trying to figure out this world building for?
This is actually for my book. It's actually just an apartment complex that a guy stays in.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's nothing even that. It's not even that impressive.
Yeah, well, it's still cool though. It's still a cool comparison to make. Is that something you think you would do like explicitly? Like, do you think you'd have the character remark internally about it, or do you think you're just trying to evoke it in the description?
I've read your writing just has so much more character than mine. Like, all of your people have, all of your narrators just have a ton of character, and like you can feel it bleeding through the page, even though you've got characters on top of your narrator, and I love that. I mean, obviously it was Terry Pratchett-esque in the sense that you were trying to channel Terry Pratchett.
Yeah, it made me feel like I had a lot of wiggle room to make these extremely characterized different voices. Like a lot of the time, especially if you're writing more realistic characters, the things that distinguish them are nuance, the particularities of how they handle a situation, or how they might respond to something in a slightly more terse or more verbose way, or whatever. But these characters are like so they're right on the cusp of being caricatures. The only thing that doesn't make them caricatures is that the story doesn't meld to fit them. They have conflict, in the story. So I'm curious. You're making like a comparison between that and your writing, and I'm curious where you're going with that.
No, not really. I just my writing just feels, I don't know. It's so hard to figure out whether your writing is kind of stilted or has less character, or whether it's or whether you just have a more subtle style, whether other people have more explicit ones.
Yeah, we are obviously, the worst judges of our own art. And I think that's a good thing. I think when you're doubting those things, it means you're ready to adjust. You're ready to, like, you know, be open if you find something that you dislike about your story. But when you're that close, I think it's kind of healthy to have a feeling like that. If you're wondering if you've held too much back, maybe, you know,
Yeah.
or at least that's how I feel. And when I do feel that way, the response is often that, like, people feel like I've just hit the mark. Like, I don't know. I guess I almost want to say, if I feel bad about something in a story, and it's not because I think I did it wrong necessarily, or I think, you know, I'm being dishonest about the story, often, often, I guess that means I'm doing right. But that sounds so unintuitive. And really, that sounds pretty hopeless. If I'm doing something wrong, if it feels like I'm doing something wrong, I'm probably doing something right. How, as a writer, am I supposed to accept that?
That is really hard. It is incredibly difficult to be a good judge of your work, in both ways. By the way, you know, it's hard to know when it's good, and it's hard to know when it's bad. It's very easy to kind of sit there and go, oh no, this isn't any good. But at the same time, oftentimes people will read your book and they will think that entirely different parts are a lot more compelling, and you go, what, really? I don't know if that's any good.
Yeah, exactly. And actually, part of me, when they respond that way, I'm like, no, you idiot, it's terrible, don't you get it? And, like, I would never say that, obviously, but, like, my internal reaction, it's so,
it's
like,
terrible, don't you get it? Why don't you understand? It's awful.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you need any resources? Because I am just drowning in resources right now.
You know, I'm actually okay. It's just that I need to build more buildings. I need to build a university so that I can get into the next age here, the Imperial Age. I believe this will be the first time I've ever gotten to the Imperial Age.
Yeah, well, this will be. I don't know, how long have we been playing for? I've been just clearing some space. I'm gonna, by the way, I'm going to clear a way for you to come through the back of their base.
Oh, fabulous. I'm gonna be able to do something with all these pikemen I built.
Yeah. Also, can you go into... Oh, good, you've been upgrading your people. Okay, can you upgrade those units?
Yes.
So, can you go into your barracks and your archery range, and can you click the little thing below them, which will say upgrade to whatever?
Yes. I accidentally clicked both halberdier and two-handed swordsman, but whatever.
That's good. That is good. You want both of those guys to be upgrading.
Okay. Ooh, the sound it makes when you build a monastery is really, really, really somehow intimidating.
But like, whoa.
Oh, yeah. Okay, what am I... Tim, help me. What do I do next?
What are you trying to do?
I don't rightly know. Now I have this university and this,
You don't really need to do anything with the university, because it's mostly building upgrades, buildings that you don't have, because you don't have a castle. How much stone do you have?
2.6 thousand.
That's so much, and you don't have any castles.
Yeah, yep.
Okay,
well,
we're gonna...
I've not had anything to do with it, and people have been on it the whole game, so...
We are gonna do a thing where you are going to bring all of your villages, alright? And you are going to...
Put them on the park.
You are going to build a ton of castles inside their base, alright?
Fabulous.
So what you're going to do is we're going to send in our units, and you're going to go in one way, and I'm going to go in the other, and I'll go in first, because otherwise they'll send all their units at you, and then you'll die. But then after you've sent your units in to attack, then you'll send in all of your all of your villagers, because at this point in the game it doesn't matter if they're harvesting your resources that much, and I can always send you whatever resources you need.
I'm on my way into the Imperial Age, finally.
Yep.
So we're doing a Trojan castle. Is what we're doing.
Yeah, basically. I've actually found that this book that I've been writing has been. I've thought a lot more carefully about it than I have for any other book. Like on a phrasing level, like, you know, I'll think a lot more about why am I including this particular piece of description and criticizing it on those grounds a lot more.
Why do you think that is?
I think that's honestly just because I've been thinking a lot more about it because of my channel, partly, but also, you know, I've been working a lot more on reading fiction and studying why fiction works and figuring out why, you know, why do good writers include certain bits of dialogue or description or, you know, good bits of dialogue or description. And it's been really fulfilling to kind of see that in other books and try and translate that to mine. You know, I think there's some really interesting stuff with a lot of writers where they only include stuff that's like really relevant or will come up later. But of course, there are also other writers who just kind of include everything because it adds to theme and atmosphere and what the whole place kind of just feels like, and trying to find out that balance. But more importantly, like, I've been thinking a lot more about what's the reason behind this. It has to give a second purpose. Every line has to have a second purpose. That's kind of been my motto for this.
That's really interesting. I think a different way during my writing, but it kind of sounds like like you're making a transition from like an amateur writer into like that valley of the Dunning-Kruger curve. You know what I mean? Where like when you have never written something but you're reading novels, it kind of feels like, oh, like it's just writing, right? I know how to write. I can do that. So you get all excited and stuff. Then you go and try to do it. And I think one of two things ends up happening. Either you think you've written your magnum opus and you think you're a genius and there's truly no saving you at that point. Or you try to write it and you realize it's just terrible and it's way harder than you thought, and you either give up or keep plugging along and eventually develop skill. And you know, on the Dunning-Kruger curve, there's this valley where as you do more of it and acquire more experience, your confidence goes down. And at the bottom of that valley is where most people give up. So it kind of feels like you're like cresting the bottom part of that valley, where like you tried to write novels for a long time, you stopped for a while because it just wasn't working out, started to acquire more experience with what like writing in general, and now you're trying it again, and it feels like you have enough experience to feel like a little bit more confident, or at least have some stuff to think about. You're not just grasping at straws, hoping what you're writing will turn out well.
Yeah, potentially. I mean, I think, you know, you've definitely got to go through that part where you look really critically at your work and then you go, okay, this is not great. I've got to be able to fix this. Like, I had this conversation the other day with people on Discord about whether you can do good writing fast, and whether 2,000 words in a day is a lot of words to have written. And I sort of had a disagreement. I basically said that I don't believe when you're an inexperienced writer that you can do good writing fast. And the key word there is inexperience, because I have yet to probably see writing from an inexperienced writer that is either good and quick, or rather than good and slow.
Hmm.
What do you think
Yeah,
of that?
I think I agree with you pretty much. The thing is, I think you can write quickly, but I think the first version of it is pretty much always going to be bad, unless you're extremely lucky, or you're a well. Then if you're self-editing in the process, it's not going to be a fast process. So I think you can write quickly, but but I think if you want to write really quickly and you want it to be really well, you're probably going to be writing a lot more, because you're going to write a first draft that is probably really terrible because you just gun it all out without checking it, without thinking it through. Then you get to go and write the second draft, and you already have an impression of your own work. You're familiar with it. Um,
Yeah, I
I
totally get
think.
what you're saying there. The second draft, like, you go through and you definitely, um, people have often asked me, they say, "Oh, I've been hoping to sort of do it in one draft," and I'm like, "Oh, we're not all crap. I've forgotten his name. The importance of being earnest."
Oh, Oscar Wilde.
Oscar Wilde. He wrote The Importance of Being Earnest in like a weekend, and
That's crazy.
yeah, I know, and I'm just like, we are not Oscar Wilde. I am not Oscar Wilde, and most importantly, like, you are not Oscar Wilde.
Yeah, yeah.
um, I think that unless you're a prodigy, unless you're incredibly good or lucky, the likelihood of you writing something very, very good on your first try is pretty low. And from that, I have noticed that there's a real difference in how you approach a book psychologically in the second draft, which is that in the first draft, you're trying to get all the words out and get all the plot points right and get all the beats there. And when you've sort of got that already down, the second draft lets you go through and you are suddenly, going, you're looking at what you've written and you're thinking about it more intensely because you've got that stuff behind you, and it allows you to be a lot more critical of yourself and know where you're wanting to go on a kind of more metatextual level.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've talked about this a bit. I mean, I've thought a lot about this process or this part of the process, and I really feel like you don't know your work until you've tried to write it. And that's maybe one of the reasons Oscar Wilde is able to write so quickly, because like the importance of being earnest is hardly probably the first thing Oscar Wilde wrote, and he was prolific, at least with letters and correspondence and stuff. He was writing all the time. So I'm sure there's a skill he's developed with familiarizing himself with his ideas as he writes. And maybe that's something you can do with a lot of time. But usually, for most writers, I think it's going to be that you don't know your idea very well until you've tried to articulate it once and run into the problems you have in the process of articulation. Then, once you've run into those problems and seen, how inaccurate the idea has turned out compared to what you envisioned, then you can go back and be like, okay, so maybe this thing needs to be more that way, etc., etc. But if you just try to do it all in the first draft, you're definitely not probably going to write the thing you meant to write.
No. Okay, we need to push. Bring all of your units up to here.
All of my soldiers, yeah.
All of your soldiers and all of your villagers.
Oh, okay. Is there a good way to select all of them?
Double click on any villager.
Oh my god, I did not know I could do that. Okay,
Now send them all to that point where I have my little
siege engines going.
Siege engines going.
Okay, all right. I'll just walk them up behind those siege engines.
And get your units there first.
My soldiers?
Yeah, get all your soldiers in there as well.
Okay. All right, they're on their way. It's frightening. It feels like they're funneling in toward their death. I know they're not, but I trust you, Tim. I believe you. They'll survive this.
So I want you to build a castle here as soon as I attack, all right? And then build a castle around here, okay? as best you can, and then build another castle like here. Alright, you ready? I'm just gonna destroy these.
Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you. Have you died?
Okay, yeah. My computer exploded again. So
Oh, you're kidding me.
We were so close. We made it so far.
We were so close.
We're going through the tunnel of death. Everything was great.
Hang on. Hang on, I can invite you into a game again. Wait, is your computer still dead? Get it up and running and we'll get that game up again.
Okay, hopefully my computer can last another couple minutes. I'm sure that's all it'll take to
It will.
fix this thing.
I mean, I was ready to destroy them for the past like 20 minutes.
We were just using it as a backdrop to keep our bodies engaged while our minds go, so we can have conversation, right?
It is really hard to keep a conversation like coherent while also playing a game.
Yeah, it is. There were a couple times while I was playing and talking where like I would finish a sentence and then reflect and be like, wait, what? Did I just say that? Particularly, I said something about thinking if it's bad and I've written it, it's probably gonna be good. Which I don't know if I actually agree with that.
I sort of took that as a little bit hyperbolous. Is hyperbolous a word?
Hyperbolic.
Hyperbolic. There we go. That's the word I'm trying to go for. I'm a good writer. Yeah.
Yeah, I believe you.
Yeah. You just let me know when that started up.
Okay. Windows very opportunistically decided to take this opportunity to update my computer. So that's fabulous.
I probably should have just
my Microsoft Edge.
Microsoft Edge. Jeez.
It also got rid of my desktop backup for some reason.
We'll have to record another episode of this at some point. Because having someone else there really helps.
It's super fun to be able to chat about this stuff though, because this is the kind of thing, if you're surrounded by a lot of people who don't write, it's very hard to talk to them about this kind of stuff because obviously they don't relate, and you lose them very quickly as you start to try to talk about it.
Yeah, it's not exactly the most interesting subject to everyone else.
Actually, I mean, in fact, that's one of the big problems with writing. The process itself is very hard to make interesting because you're just committing symbols to a page.
Yeah, committing symbols to a page.
The way you put that made it sound like you had like a dreadful realization about your occupation.
No, it's sort of like, it's sort of like sitting there and saying that I guess all we do in life is try more efficient ways to acquire food. And then it's like, is that all my job is?
Oh, yeah. They're getting pretty existential over it. I mean, I just mean it in a practical sense. Like, there's nothing, I don't think that makes writing bad or wrong. It just means visually and sensorily, it is not engaging to watch, which is something I've encountered on Twitch, because I run writing groups on Twitch. I know a bunch of other point who are like really trying to find ways to bring their occupation to the platform, and you're immersed in your writing while you're doing it, so it's hard to have conversation with people on the live stream, and they're there watching you commit symbols to a page. So
yeah, I mean, there's not much movement on the page, in a sense. It's almost entirely static except for a tiny little clicker moving along, creating little symbols on a page.
Yeah, and I mean, that sounds like it would be a good name for, like, an anthology, by the way. I don't know what...
Putting symbols to a page.
Symbols on a page. Something like that, yeah. I don't know what kind of work would go in there. What kind of short story? What kind of theme would that be?
I don't know.
I'm gonna give my computer a hot sec to oh, that was appropriate phrasing, a hot sec cool down.
I cannot believe your computer bunged out at that point.
No, it was doing so well.
It was. It was. I'm so sorry,
Terrible.
everyone, for this being our first episode and it's bugging out.
It adds
This is
texture. It makes it fun. It's
this is why it
honestly,
goes on the
it's more,
second channel.
yeah, it's probably more amusing this way than if it had gone perfectly.
Yeah, I suppose so. I the book that I'm currently writing has been like it's really emotionally close for me. You know, there's sort of a distance to a lot of experiences for a lot of writers. You know, it's sort of more of a creative exercise. It's an exploration of, oh, this would be cool, and I want to kind of explore it. You might get attached to the characters, but that becomes secondary, or at least it comes second to how you sort of approach it initially. But for me, like that emotional attachment was there from the start because of the issues that the characters deal with, and it feels more like putting a lot of things in my life to the page rather than and then translating them through a fictional kind of lens rather than putting stuff to a page and then finding that emotion there and developing it and cultivating it. And I that's why it took me almost like 3 to 4 years to get to the point where I was like, no, 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 I'm ready to do this again. Because it also allows me to bring a new perspective to what I was writing at that point. Because I've gone through so much and done so much in this particular area, which is mental health, and I am really happy with the improvements that I've made. Like there's a lot of linguistic choices that I made back then that I was like, oh, I can see what I was trying to communicate about what we should be saying about this sort of stuff, but it didn't come through because I didn't have the knowledge that I do now. You know.
Yeah, absolutely. I've had the same exact experience really, yeah, a few times. Really quickly, we touched on this earlier, but do you feel like this this closeness to you not only makes the story more genuine but easier to write? Like do you feel like you'd be laboring a lot more if you had to kind of intuit what these kind of distant characters would be going through as opposed to just writing what you feel?
Um, in a sense, uh, yeah, I get what you're saying, but I think that I think that it definitely makes it easier in the sense that like the depth, the emotional depth or the thematic depth that you're wanting to put into the story already feels like it's there rather than having to manufacture it. And uh because you've already got it in you. The difficulty is, you know, trying to actually get that down on the page so that the reader feels it the same way you do, because they won't necessarily. And like, even though you might write something and you're seeing like these extra layers of depth to a particular line of dialogue or a scene, sometimes you don't manage to capture that accurately.
Yeah, that's the weird thing about the dialogue between the author and the audience, because you know, with what we do, it's not really empirical. We really engage our audience cognitively because it's symbols on a page, right? So when they read these words and stuff, they have to visualize things a certain way, and it'll evoke different emotions. And that's one of the things about poetry I really admire, and didn't understand for a long time, that like all these weird things poets do, the verse, the meter, all the tools, assonance and rhyme that they're using, it's not just to have fun, it's to create emotion. You're using devices and language to you know, evoke something, or not evoke something, create
yeah.
something within the audience, or within yourself. And it's a really hard skill to pick up. It's a really hard thing to learn how to use really what is like abstract expressions of thought to, you know, replicate something you're experiencing for the audience. So I
Yeah.
definitely believe that would take a very long time to do, and I can see how actually with that weight of, you know, the trying to accurately transfer that stuff, it could even actually be harder because you want them to know what you're going through, and it's not so much like, oh, they can feel how they feel about it. I'm sure on some level that's true, but because it's so dear to you, you know, the task has got to be really important.
Yeah, I get what you mean. Oh, are you in?
My computer is probably about ready. We can probably make it for another few minutes.
Okay, all right.
How do I? Okay, I see. I think I know how to get.
I just need to send you an invite.
Oh, I saw you were playing, and I just clicked the big green arrow
No.
next to it. The big green play button.
Are you ready for me to send you an invite?
Yes.
Yep. Okay, let's do that. You are not online.
Oh, that's weird. Let me figure this out really. Welcome to the future. Compelling content always.
Quiet, you. Building on like kind of that disconnect between what you feel and what you can put into words, and also connecting that to what I said before about not knowing whether or not you're being deep or just pretentious. I sort of have that struggle because one of the things I've done for this book is I am using linguistic cues from a poem. It's not a famous poem. It is a long poem, and it's a pretty old poem. And it's a reinvention of the hero and Leander myth, the Greek myth, which is basically about two lovers on either side of the Hellespont, which is a giant river down through the Dardanelles, I think it is. And it's the summary of the story is that hero and Leander, Leander is one of them is like a nun type figure, and the other is like from pursuing her, and he would swim across the Hellespont to get to her every single night, as he would try, because he was falling in love with her, and then eventually he would drown inside the Hellespont trying to reach her. And the important point being that she would leave out a candle or a light on her in her tower, so that he can see his way across the Hellespont when he's swimming towards her. And all right, you're on. I sent you an invite.
Fabulous. By the way, listening to this, I will say nothing to the audience, but it is significant hearing this part of the inspiration for your story.
Oh, yeah, and basically she would leave out this light for him, and he would swim across with it in mind, so he would know where she is. But of course, one night the wind blows out the candle, and he ends up drowning, trying to reach her, and then she throws herself off a cliff, seeing her lover die. And that's like a common thing in Greek mythology, those sort of tragic love, types of stories. Orpheus and Eurydice, I think, is another one, that sort of thing. Although she doesn't, they don't kill themselves. Doesn't matter. Never mind.
There's tons of that. I mean, isn't Sisyphus also that?
Isn't Sisyphus the one that pushes the thing up the hill?
Yeah, didn't he get that from? No, I was thinking of this.
All right, you're in? No, you're not in. Why are you not in?
I don't know. I was online in Steam, and then as soon as the game started, it says I'm not connected to multiplayer services. So fabulous. I'm online though, for sure.
I'm sending you another invite.
Okay, let me follow.
So like, there's a poem about this story that I am drawing from linguistically, and there are phrases of that poem scattered throughout the book, and particular symbols or things from that story are used as symbols in the book. And people listening to this, the poem is not relevant in the way you're thinking it's relevant. It is it is probably a lot more abstract than you're thinking. But that, to me, like that level of depth there, it's very easy to think, oh, I'm throwing this in, but the audience is never going to pick this stuff up. They probably have never heard this poem, and they've probably, they will not recognize the language that is used throughout the story. Uh, did you get the invite?
Yeah, I did. I clicked it, and then it just brought me. Let me try one more. I'm just gonna leave the game. Try sending me another invite, and then I'll see
Okay.
if.
Tell me when you're back in the game, because it won't work till then. Oh, you are now playing. Let me know when you're on the main page, the menu.
So yeah, I'm really interested in what you're saying here. It sounds like it sounds really difficult. It sounds like a difficult thing to swing with the audience. Well, okay. It shows my profile now, but it says I'm not signed in. Let me see if that changes when I go to play a game. But it sounds like it'd be hard to sell with the audience because obviously they don't get the significance of it off the bat, and so including this, will it feel vestigial to them, or do you feel like you've tied it enough into the telling of the story that it's not just like some weird diegetic tag along?
I mean, like, on the one hand, I don't know, and I was reading through the first chapter again, and I did recognize one of these quotes, and I was like, oh man, I know it looks cool to me, but to anyone who hasn't read the poem, they're not going to get what this is even referencing. So I had to take it out, and it just looked like purple prose when I was using it in that first chapter. But also the first chapters where you've got to be a lot clearer, you've got to be a lot more, you don't have words to waste on pretty language necessarily, and or not pretty language, but you can't risk nearly as much in the first chapter as you can in perhaps later chapters. And so I did take that out. I think to me it's more of an Easter egg, and it's a thing that I think if people find, they'll be like, oh, that's cool, but it's not necessary to get the depth of the story, to get the themes of the story, and it's more of an analog for the themes of the story rather than the themes come through this analog. Sorry, what I mean by that is you don't need to understand this particular poetic instance to get the themes of the story. You get them outside of that, but this will perhaps it's a connection that if you know it's there is a nice thing to see.
Yeah, you know what that reminds me. You read the script of my forthcoming video in advance of its release, and
Yeah.
you remember the section on incluing?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, I don't know if this is exactly that, but it reminds me a lot of include. What you're doing with an include is you're using a piece of language to help the audience extrapolate out towards something. The thing is, it's so brief, and it's just worked in prose that if the audience doesn't get it, it's perfectly fine. Ruin anything. They might just go, "Oh, that was a choice of words," like that. And I think that strategy is really good for this kind of thing. That it's like, I think you're doing something that has, really deep important the audience's understanding of the story, because if they don't extrapolate outward in the way you hope, or they don't get it, then they get to some point later in the story and they're like, what the heck?
Yeah.
What is all of this?
Yeah, I get you.
But yeah, so I totally think you're going the right way.
I suppose it's having layers, but the audience doesn't necessarily need to get them, and it doesn't necessarily make the book it doesn't make the book that much deeper. It's just it gives it layers that it otherwise would not have, and doesn't lose anything for having.
Exactly. That's the big trade-off. You spent a bunch of time weaving this in, and you had it at the climax of chapters and stuff like that. Something that really bugs me is when someone works something like this into a story, and then at the climax they use something that is like a clue, or like an include, or just implicit, and they make some allusion or reference to it at the climax, and that's supposed to be the climax of the story. If you don't get it and you get to climax and that happens, it's totally pointless. And that's happened to me in a few stories. I'm like, what the heck? But like all this other action, what about that? Like, shouldn't the story
You should take the invite, by the way.
Yeah, now it's working.
Okay, now it's working.
Yeah,
Oh,
now
finally!
let's go build our Trojan castles.
I'm so sorry, everyone. Next time we'll try and be a bit tighter. We've got to wrap this up anyway. We're coming up on an hour and a half.
It's okay. I mean, this is just a casual thing anyway, right? It's not like you have a day with like work to do or anything.
I was actually going to do this tomorrow morning by myself, but I think it's actually better with two people, you know. Would you be keen on joining me again for another type of thing?
Yeah, I think that'd be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I have to figure out my schedule, but we'll talk about that later.
Yeah. All right. Okay. Are you readied up? Are you good to go?
It says in order to participate in this lobby you must download. So yeah, that's something I have.
Yes, you just got to do that. It'll download the game for you like we did that other time.
Oh, Tim, you better send me another invite because I pressed an X that I probably shouldn't have pressed.
What?
I thought there was a dialogue open on the screen. It was like, "Oh, download this thing." So I pressed X, thinking it would go away. So
I sent you another invite. Take it.
Okay. Here we go. I won't X anything this time. All right. So where's the download feature? I guess I gotta wait for the download. And incidentally, I've actually done that with stories where I've written a really implicit thing into the climax. But
hang on. Have you found the download before we continue this?
No, I haven't. I have no idea where to look for that.
Is there a button to the right of? What do you see on your screen right now? Wait, can you just click ready? Can you click ready?
Actually, I just got the dialogue and I pressed yes.
Okay.
So
there we go.
There we go. It's down. The fish is joining the game again. So what I was saying though was I've had experiences where like I'll add something deep to the climax, and I did this a lot as a new writer because I felt like it needed something. I'll have some meaningful line or something like that, but at the time of writing, it didn't actually mean anything. I just did it because it felt like there had to be some punch at the end or at the climax or something, and then I'll show it to people, and they'll be like, "Wow, that was so amazing, that thing," and they'll read stuff into it that isn't there, and it suddenly makes the story so great. So, like, while I can't recommend you try to do that, it's so interesting to see how effective the suggestion of depth can be for people who are looking for it.
Right. Yeah, and I absolutely agree. And I think the part of it that plays into that is that obviously you and I both have internet followings, which will affect it in ways I'm sure you're familiar with, which is that people want to believe, you know, you have that skill and depth, which can be intoxicating, but it does also mean you've kind of got to be aware of, you know, am I actually good here? Also, click ready.
Yeah, let me make sure I'm on your list. I mean, I probably will be, right? But
yeah, it'll automatically do it.
Okay, all right. I mean, it can be intoxicating, but more than anything, I find it really intimidating that there's an audience who expects things, and I know the majority of them will just be happy to get pretty much anything I write, but I don't know. Somehow, it's even worse that I know they'll just be happy, which is weird. Like, I'm super grateful. I'm super glad to have the support network, but it's almost like the joy of creating the thing, period, kind of outweighs the actual merit of the thing.
Yeah.
I guess what I'm saying is it's hard for me to believe that the praise actually means it's good, because the praise might just mean, you know, they like me and they like my past work.
Yeah, I get what you mean. All right, okay. Are you ready to push?
Yeah, let me bring my soldier. here.
I I am like always, afraid that like my book, it's definitely not what I think a lot of people will come up with. Like, do you find that you write stuff that people don't think you normally would?
Well, I think if you if you look at the variety of content on the channel and you look at the variety of short stories I've written, I hope I've pegged myself pretty well as a variety writer, where I'll just try a bunch of different things. So at this point, I don't think I'd surprise anyone too much by writing just about anything.
Okay.
But I think the two things I could really shock people with would be realistic or historic.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I mean, I know, like, you definitely have kind of this a tendency towards, I think, well, I won't speak for you, but I think you have a tendency towards, like, how to put it, you have a slight absurdist edge.
That's interesting. I that's not a descriptor I've heard before, but I'm not opposed to it. But I'm really interested in like what you mean by it. And it's not like, oh yeah, tell me more. It's genuinely like, please, like what makes you move toward that script?
All right, let's move in our troops, and then I'll tell you.
Yeah.
So you wanna select all of your villages.
Got him.
Right, now go onto the military buildings
Oh, over on my
on your thing. No, just click on a castle, so get them to build a castle, but put it like here.
Oh, my computer just died.
All right, never mind. Okay,
Yeah, that's it. We were so close.
that's
I'm
fine.
So sorry.
I
I'll
will.
get an actual professional YouTuber set up with like a tower computer and stuff. This is what happens when you do your career off one laptop.
Yeah, that's okay. You're doing. You did well.
I still like the conversation I had with you and Daniel the other day, where I was like, oh yeah, but like I have a pretty nice computer though, and I described it and like the price bracket I bought it at, and you guys were both like, Benji, you don't have a nice computer. I was like, what?
No, you don't. It's not that great.
I thought it's got keys backlit with red light, and it's called the Predator, and it's a big bulky black and red gaming laptop. I mean, it certainly seems like it would be a good laptop at a glance, right? But
I mean, I actually have a Predator computer, so I actually kind of know what you're talking about. But no, unfortunately, Predators are like good, but they're definitely not top of the range or anything.
you know what I really hate about owning this computer, actually? Back in the old days, before the new normal, I would go to coffee shops a lot to work. Oh man, reminiscing. So I'd go to coffee shops and I'd set up with my computer and my little portable office, and I'd be working. And if I ever made eye contact, it was my head floating about 6-7 inches above the word Predator in big silver letters.
Would you like to know your stats for this game, by the way?
I would love to, Tim, especially
Okay.
in comparison to yours.
So I got 12,486 military points. Take a guess at how many you got.
Oh, should I do an accurate guess or a hyperbolic guess?
Take both. Take an accurate guess.
Okay. All right. Accurate guess. I'm gonna say if you got, what did you say? You got 12,000.
Yeah, 12,486.
Okay. I'm gonna guess I got 2,000, but my hyperbolic guess is like 5.
You got 40.
Much closer to my hyperbolic guess.
You killed 3 units and lost 9.
A number of those to a boar.
Probably. I killed 760 and lost 170, but that was just because I had a castle stacked. You actually did pretty well on economy. you got 2,977 on economy, which was better than both of the the AI, and you collected 8,000 wood, 13,000 food, 2,000 stone, 3,000 gold. You know, you were doing pretty well. Um, and then technology. Yeah, well, you certainly have a score there. Uh,
That's encouraging.
to be honest, you're actually pretty similar in technology, but the timeline's pretty interesting. I don't know if you'll be able to see on the video when it goes live, but
Yeah, I'll check it out, just
for everyone watching, the dark stuff, the dark color, so I'm blue, he's red, then the two AI are yellow and green, and the dark colors are the military population of the world at the time, and the light colors are the civilian population. Anyways, that is all. Thank you very much for joining us, Benji. For joining me. And I hope we can do this again sometime where your computer doesn't crash. We'll discuss more stuff. This was fun for a first episode.
That was a lot of fun. I am always game to talk about writerly, authorly YouTube things. It's super cathartic. So yeah, let me know when another opportunity like that arises, and I'll take it, even if it means I have to manage a floundering civilization with a weakness to local wildlife.
Okay, sounds good. The rest of you, stay nerdy, and I'll see you next time in the future.